Does he have enough talent to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL?
I think it depends on how you define franchise quarterback, but yes, I think he does. I'll
tell you something else is pretty cool is my friend Ross Tucker, man. I'll tell you, this podcast that this dude has blown up. He is clearly one of the most watched podcasters when it comes to the NFL, and he's just built this baby. Like my friend Adam Caroli has built his, and some of the other guys that have built their podcasts up. He's here with us now here on the National Football Show. Hey, brother, how you doing, man?
Silio, doing great, man. Good to actually see you. All the years I've talked to you on the radio, it's nice to actually see you, man.
Absolutely, man. Dude, that podcast of yours is smoking. Tell the folks how they can listen to it, watch it. I mean, you got to be awful proud. I remember when you said you dropped it. I remember years ago when you first dropped this thing, and I'm one of the guys. I watched this thing, man. It's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I got very fortunate. I don't know, like 12 years ago, ESPN hired me after I retired to write for them. I was writing for Sports Illustrated. They asked me if I would host their podcast. I said, sure. Literally, Silio had no idea what a podcast was. I just knew they were going to pay me to talk about football. So I did it for a couple years, probably 3 years, like 2010, 11, 12 maybe. And then I went out on my own in 2013. So I had, I guess they call that the first mover advantage. So I've been doing the Ross Tucker Football Podcast daily ever since. People can check that out. Either rosstucker.com or go to youtube.com/rosstuckernfl or anywhere where podcasts are found. YouTube's obviously something that's growing right now. And then the next year, I started a fantasy one, Fantasy Feast. The year after that, I started a betting one, Even Money. And I'm very glad I started those two, the fantasy one and Even Money, the betting, because those obviously have grown quite a bit over the years as well. So I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. I love having you and listening to you. All right, let's start it out in Green Bay. And, you know, Ross, I've been telling people, we had Kurt Warner on last Friday, and I said this, I don't think it's one thing. I don't think it's Jordan Love. I think it's part of it. Last year in the championship game, bad play calling at the end of the half. They end up giving up that 7 points. They don't go for it on fourth down. The history of the relationship on how they had to divorce with Brett Favre. The Packers are run by a committee. It's the only team in the NFL that's run by committee. Mark Murphy sits there. He's the CEO of a company. He's not really the owner. And I think over 30 years, you've had two guys, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, albeit you win 2 Super Bowls. But you've clearly underachieved because there's too many voices in the room. You think that's the upsetting part of this whole thing for him?
Well, so to your point, I think this will be year 30 or 31 that they've had a top 5 quarterback at the position in a row. I mean, I guess you can argue maybe Rodgers' rookie year or his first year starting, he wasn't, but it's like 30 years, bro. They've had a top 5 quarterback, and they've only gotten to 3 Super Bowls. I mean, we all know Brady's gotten to 10. He's won 7. Like, it's pretty crazy to think that and with different teams, by the way, not all just New England. He did it in Tampa now as well. Your former team. It's just kind of funny that not funny, but the Packers, they absolutely have underachieved. Considering they had a top 5 quarterback for 30 years, you should go to more than 3 Super Bowls. And I think the thing I say on social media at Ross Tucker NFL is that the Packers are so concerned about the future and long-term sustained success, which, by the way, is a very honorable goal, and it should be the goal, that they're always seemingly good enough to not quite be good enough. You know, they're good enough to be right there, but not quite good enough. They've never done much on free agency. But if this were a team with an owner, if this were Jerry Jones or this were a lot of these cities, they'd be like, hey, we need a new coach in here. We need to do something different. I'm glad we're winning every year, but we're not winning enough. We're not winning at all. But if you're in Green Bay, to your point about the board of directors or whatever, you're probably only really going to get fired in Green Bay if you're bad. If you have like a couple back-to-back bad years like McCarthy did. As long as you're winning double-digit games and going to the playoffs, it's kind of hard to get fired. So if you're the GM there, Gutekunst, or the head coach LaFleur or Murphy, hey, as long as we are in the mix in the playoffs every year, we get to keep these jobs. That doesn't mean that they're not trying to win the Super Bowl. They are. It just means they absolutely always have one eye on the present and one eye on the future. And I think it's gotten to the point where some Packers fans wish, especially here at the end of Aaron's career, and I know Aaron feels this way, that they had two eyes on the present and not such an eye on the future.
And Ross, I say this, I go, if you're going to take a template on how you look at the future in the same light, looking at the present, look at what the 49ers did. The 49ers went out, they made a trade, they sent Tampa Bay a third rounder for Steve Young. They end up winning 5 Super Bowls. They had Montana in the building, and they jettisoned him out of there. And he goes to Kansas City, has success. But they were looking at the future, but they were also looking at the present. But to your point, they won 5 Super Bowls doing that. And to their point, I just look at it there, and I'm like this if I'm Aaron. And then I watch what Brady does. Brady wants Leonard Fournette, gets him. He wants Gronk, gets him. He wants AB, gets him. I don't know if I'm Aaron Rodgers, everything I asked for goes on deaf ears.
Well, all Aaron Rodgers wanted was for them to not cut Jake Kumaro, and they cut him. I mean, Brady gets anything he wants, right, in Tampa, and rightfully so. Rodgers comes out the day before final cuts and says, Jake Kumaro is a lock. He'll be on the team. And the next day they cut him. That's almost like disrespectful.
Totally.
That is, you got to know that burned him up, man. That burned him up. It's like, wow. Because he knows how bad that makes him look. So I think that's why he's as frustrated as anything. The Jordan Love pick obviously bothered him for all the reasons we already know. And it was really a stupid pick. Because if you look at Rodgers contractually, he was always going to be there at least 2 more years and probably 3 more years. So the value you get from having Jordan Love, from having a rookie quarterback, is the rookie contract. But almost no matter what, at least 50% of Jordan Love's rookie contract, he's going to be a backup. So you're not even getting the value. I think drafting the heir apparent to Rodgers was a smart decision. If they did it maybe this year, probably next year, definitely the year after that, but 2020, no, that was not good.
I'm going to make a point to you and tell me if I'm wrong here on this, with what Julio Jones did today. Everyone knows the giant cap number this year and next year too. You're not paying $20 million for a wideout who's 32. And if this guy thinks there's a market out there for him at $20 million, I think he's high. I think he went out there because he knows that nobody's really going to look at that contract. He had his worst year of his career last year. They didn't really suck that bad. When I'm talking offensively, I mean, I thought Matt Ryan put up some decent numbers last year. They just can't put anybody on the ground. And so he's going to go to social media and he's going to go out in the market to try to create a market. I mean, I say this to you, Ross. I say this guy after June 1 could be a cap hit casualty, and they can end up cutting this guy because it's not that he's a bad player, but that's a bad number that he's got next to his name. What says you?
Yeah, so his salary, I think his
15.9, I think.
Yeah, 15.3 is his guaranteed salary, but obviously his cap number in Atlanta is a lot more than that.
23.
Right, a lot more than that, to your point. But they want to move on from him. You know, what came out today I thought was interesting is that it's pretty clear he wants out. You know, I thought before this was totally from the Falcons, salary cap issues, wanting to move on and clean them up a little bit. Sounds like Julio wants out. $23 million would be his cap hit this year. $40 million in dead cap money if they move on from him.
Wow.
That is rough. I don't even know if they're able to do that. They're going to have to, oh, you know what? That's why it's post June 1st. Excuse me. That's why they're doing the post June 1st, because they can split that up.
That's right. They can defer that money out now, Ross, because of that new CBA. They can defer that out like they did Gurley in Los Angeles.
Right. So I think he's going to get traded. Okay. There's a report I saw somewhere today, I can't remember, that somebody offered him a third-round pick. Because I do think $15.3 million, there are people that will say that they can get enough value out of it. I mean, a lot of these guys are getting $20 million a year now. You look at Hopkins, some of these contracts, $15 million for Julio at age 32 on a good team. I think there will be some people that feel like that's worth it. The question is, what will they give up draft pick? I don't know if I believe that third-round pick, but somebody will give up some draft pick for the rights to pay Julio 15, because it's not just paying him 15. He's got, I believe, he's got a few million guaranteed next year too.
He does.
It's 2.75, but his salary next year is about the same. Ends up being his base salary is $11 million the next 2 years.
That's right.
So you trade for him, you got to have him for 3 years at fairly reasonable. In fact, he's only got $2 million guaranteed next year. $2 million of it's guaranteed for next year.
Okay, but so that maybe, like you said, there is a market out there. A couple last questions for you. I know you got to run, Ross. Let me throw this at you here. I said this the other day that to me the offseason move has to be in San Francisco. Look, I know that Garoppolo has missed 53% of his games. When he's healthy, he's 22-8. There's no doubt. He's a heck of a ball player. But what you've done is you've shown that you have a guy for the present now in Jimmy G. You want that guy on your team. You have a better chance of getting to the Super Bowl with him than Trey Lance. If you're the rest of that guys in the locker room, for me, when I see that Super Bowl roster, I'm sitting in that locker room going, okay, so if Garoppolo's healthy, man, the organization really wants to make a run at it. Plus they draft their future in this project in Trey Lance. I don't know, man. Ross, I feel pretty good if I'm in that San Francisco locker room now. I got two dudes in the locker room. We just got through talking about the present and the future. That's a pretty good job there by John Lynch, the general manager, looking ahead and staying in the present.
I agree. And look, I think ideally for them, Jimmy has a great year. They win the Super Bowl, and then they got a good problem to have. I still think they'd probably move on at that point, but at least maybe they'd franchise tag him for another year and go that route. But at least they have that option now. Whereas every guy in that locker room knows they're going to give them every chance to win this year. They know they need to win this year. So if Jimmy G's playing well, he stays in. If he struggles or gets hurt, they put Trey Lance in, and it unfolds the way it should unfold. And then, by the way, Jimmy G's a free agent, and they'll go ahead and they'll be able to get a comp pick if he goes somewhere else, unless he plays great, and then they try to tag and trade him. But I'm with you. I like the fact that they're sticking with Garoppolo, and I really believe they will as long as he's playing well.
How about this one here? The Philadelphia Eagles. I like what I see in Jalen Hurts. I loved the fact that he was coached by Nick Saban and Lincoln Riley. These two guys, completely different philosophies, and he was able to pick the playbook up immediately, which means he understands offense. How about this one, though? Let's underline it and underscore it here. Does he have enough talent to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL?
I think it depends on how you define franchise quarterback, but yes, I think he does. I saw enough last year. I define franchise quarterback as a guy that can be a top 20, maybe top 22 player at the position and be that guy for your franchise for 5 to 10 years. That's a franchise quarterback. I do think he can do that. I saw enough in that Arizona game, the New Orleans game, where I think he can do that. Doesn't mean he will, but I think he has that ability, Cilio. I don't think I saw enough to think he can be a top 10 guy. I think he'd be between 11 and 20 probably. But look, there's a lot of good quarterbacks between 11 and 20 that the teams that are, at the bottom, they would love to have on as their quarterback. Absolutely love to have as their quarterback. People always are like top 5, top 10. Do you actually do the math? I mean, let me tell you, I'll just pull up one website real quick, okay? Here's who they have as their quarterbacks from 11 to 20. Matthew Stafford, Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert. You're talking about, these are good players. Roethlisberger, Joe Burrow, and that's not including Jimmy G. They got at 22, or Trevor Lawrence at 21.
Or Tua.
Yeah, they got Kyler Murray at 17. It kind of surprises me. They got Fitzpatrick at 19, but he played well last year. My point is like, even if you they got Daniel Jones at 20 ahead of Trevor Lawrence and Jimmy G at 22, Wentz at 23, Jameis 24. But my point is, like, if you have a top 20 quarterback, you should hold on to that guy for dear life. And I think Jalen Hurts can be that guy. I don't know if he will, but I think he has the ability to be between 11 and 20. I'm not sure he'll ever throw it consistently well enough to be top 10. I mean, top 10, man, you're talking, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen. I mean, you're talking about legit guys.
I think it's going to be an interesting 2021 season. I can't wait to see how this bad puppy plays out. Brother, it is great catching up with you, man. Thank you so much for always, and your kindness for always doing this for me, man. Thank you so much, Ross.
Anytime, man. You got Boomer coming up. You got, you got a heck of a guest list. You're killing it for JAKIB Media. I appreciate you having me on.
Always, man. You're just one of the best. Thank you, Ross. I appreciate it, brother.
All right. Take care.